and that's when I'm like, look at the board. Hi everyone, I hope you had a very happy new year, and if you didn't, that's okay, because I honestly feel like every day is a brand new day and there's always opportunity for it to be a good day. So this video is actually very difficult for me, but I felt like I need to just get it out of my system and just tell you guys the parts about teaching that is very difficult. I made a video about why I love being a teacher, and I honestly love videos like that, where I'm just talking about being positive, I'm just talking about the good things, forgetting about the bad things, but the bad things are pretty prevalent in any job. So as I'm talking about teaching, please remember that there's something bad to say about anything and everything, but I feel like when you know about it, you're kind of forewarned of what to expect, so that when it happens, you're kind of like, well, I mean, I expected it, and we're gonna move on, and we're gonna keep going and know that it's gonna get better. I hope it gets better. This is my second year of teaching, but I have been working with students in 8 different schools for the past 6 years. During my credential program and my master's, I had to observe different types of schools, and so I've worked in Title I schools, low-income schools, and then I've worked in really prestigious private schools too. So I've seen a variety of students, I've seen a lot of different families, I've seen a lot of school dynamics, and so this isn't all about just the school I'm working at right now, it's just my experience in the past 6 years. I know some teachers who go to work at 7:30 in the morning and then they leave at 6 p.m. because they're planning, they're grading, they're doing all of that. Well, for me, I try to do it all during the day at the same time as I'm doing other things, because I have to go home after school. I have to tutor. I try to spend time with my family as much as I can, and so I feel bad sometimes that I'm not one of those teachers that really dedicate my whole being to this career of teaching, but I try. I try my best in the time that I am available. So during my first year of teaching, I actually logged how many times I cried. I believe I cried 10 times, and then my second year of teaching, I've only cried 3. But one of those times, I almost cried while teaching and while being with my students. That's really difficult, and at that point, I just told my students, you know, I'm not in the best mood, so please understand and give me your full undivided attention. And then some kids are very receptive to it and they understand, and then some kids, they just don't. So I'm gonna start with some little things that are difficult about being a teacher, and then move on to some bigger things that really encompass why this job is so hard. So number 1 is planning and taking work home with you. I know a lot of people don't like to take work home with them, and in my productivity video, I talked about how I try to avoid it as much as I can, but sometimes it's inevitable, and sometimes, you know, I am planning at home on the weekend. I would say the most I do is 1 to 2 hours, so that's not that much, but it is time that is not paid for that I am spent working. But to be honest, I don't even know what else I would do anyway. I'd probably watch Netflix. So instead of watching a couple shows, I'll plan instead. My first year of teaching was difficult because in terms of planning, sometimes I planned too much or sometimes I planned too little. And I thought a lesson would take a certain amount of time, but my students ended up finishing it faster. And so that's when you have to be flexible and have some backup plans. And as a first year teacher, that was when I had to just kind of think, okay, well, what can they do next? And so that was something I had to gauge during my entire first year of how much to plan and how confident do I feel about the curriculum. This year, I'd say I feel a lot better about it. I know how long it's going to take my students, but sometimes here and there, they finish faster or slower than I had planned, but that's okay. Number 2, I'm just gonna jump right into it. The hardest thing about being a teacher are behavior problems. Behavior problems, behavior problems, behavior problems. If you can't manage a class, you can't teach your class. Classroom management is huge in teaching. Classroom management is all about how do you get your kids to line up, how do you get them to stop talking, how do you get them to turn in papers. It's about how you group them together so they can have discussions, when they can sharpen their pencil. It's just so many things. I'm currently clearing my credential right now, and I'm focusing on classroom management for this round because it's so big. So I'm just gonna talk to you guys about some behavior problems. I'm just gonna talk to you guys about some classroom management issues that I've encountered over the last couple of years. Teaching becomes very difficult when you can't teach. So then you just feel more like a babysitter or like a behavior therapist and not so much a teacher. You know, when you don't really get to share your knowledge and share to the young bright minds of the future, and you're just so focused on their behavior, that's when it becomes so difficult. So here's some examples of what's happened in the past. Interruptions. Okay class, so today we're going to be talking about how to divide decimals and whole numbers together. So the first thing we're going to... Yes, Rebecca. Miss Lee, what's our vocab test? Okay, sweetheart, we're in math right now, so let's focus on math. But your vocab test is going to be on Wednesday, like it always is. Having to repeat yourself all the time. All right, kiddos, go ahead and grab your textbooks and open up to page 228. 228. 228. Everyone there? Okay, so at the top of page 228, I want you to see that, yes, Miss Lee, what page are we on? Okay, just keep in mind that I only get that way when students are doing this all day. All day I am repeating myself, so then I get to the point where I'm just like, right there. Another part that makes teaching difficult is when you already realize that the student has given up in your class. I feel like a failure sometimes when my students don't try anymore, and it's up to you to find different strategies to get them engaged again, but there will be some struggle, there will be some pushback from them, and that makes it really difficult because if they've tuned out, that means, you know, I try not to take it personally, but I do because this is my career, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and sometimes I feel like not enough. And I've said that before, where it's that feeling of you pour your heart and soul into this job and then there's students who just have given up. It's hard because people always say, you know, teaching's not about being liked. It doesn't matter if the kids like you, they just need to respect you. But honestly, kids will respect the teachers that they like. But at the same time, you can't click with every single student you encounter. No matter how cool you are, no matter how young or old or motherly or fatherly you are, there will be students who just don't click with you and you don't even know why. I've always tried to have one-on-one conversations with my students. If anything is wrong or they're behaving incorrectly, I always try to pull them aside just so that we're not having a conversation in front of the entire class and then they can just be real with me. But even then, sometimes it just doesn't work. Another difficult thing about being a teacher is when students team up on you. This hasn't really happened to me, but I have seen it happen before, where students will team up together to try to, not at my school, but just tell everyone just how negative or bad or how this teacher is. But I always try to remind students, you know, teachers go into teaching because they like kids and they like to teach. Otherwise, they would have chosen a different job. So don't treat them like that. The reason why they're strict is because there's a reason for it, and you're probably misbehaving and you don't see it. That happens more so in older kids and not the younger ones. And then when students compare you to other teachers that they've had, oh, that is so frustrating because I've had students do that to me where here I am, a second-year teacher, and they're comparing me to a 15-year teacher that does this way and does this that way, and it's so much better than you, and da 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 da. And it's like, they didn't say that to my face, but I get that sense where I know where they're going with the conversation, and I just need to remember they're kids. They're kids, and it's difficult. I wish my students would just see that we are all humans, and they have no idea how much teachers care about them. We care about their well-being. We care that they grow up to be good people, and sometimes I feel like I'm not gonna see the fruit of my labor, but that's okay because I don't do it for the reward and whatnot. It's great to see a kid change to be better, but sometimes we won't see it, and sorry, just gonna like let that all go. Winter break is great because I get to just appreciate silence, but then in my silence I think a lot. Okay, and then the last behavior problem that's very difficult to deal with as a teacher is when kids won't stop talking, and I feel like that's always been an issue in every classroom because kids like to talk, they like to converse, but they just need to know when they can talk and when they can't talk, and I don't want them talking when I'm talking because I'm teaching, and it gets really frustrating when I have students who are waiting for me and they're being quiet while their neighbors are talking, and they just won't stop. And so I do have attention grabbers like that I talked about in how to silence your class immediately, but sometimes they need something else. They need something new because they're so used to the attention grabbers that it becomes like white noise to them. They don't even hear their names anymore. Like I'll say someone's name like 5 times and they don't hear me. Then I feel like I'm their mom because sometimes, you know, we ignore our moms. That's not nice. So either separating students, assigning seats, or implementing some of the things that I said in my silence your class video would be helpful. There's always ways to go about the difficulties in this job, but you just gotta stick through it. So moving on from behavior things, so things that are difficult about being a teacher, other than, you know, not being able to teach, is when students are absent and they're absent for multiple days. It's so hard to catch them up, and sometimes parents will come by and pick up their work, and then sometimes they don't, and then you just kind of have to find time to help that student catch up and get them up to speed. But really, they have classes all day, you are teaching all day, and you only have lunchtime. So while I'm eating, I'm trying to help the student. While they're eating, they're trying to learn. And then they have practice after school, they have something to do in the mornings, and so it becomes very difficult to try to catch them up. And so that's when usually they have more homework, because gotta do it sometime. And my last point is when parents email me late at night. So I try not to check my work email at night, but sometimes I do, just because I'm curious and I want to make sure I know what I'm going into my next day. But sometimes I'll get an email about an incident or something that happened during the day that their child told them about, but I have no idea about it. Or I did know, but then the child told the story from their perspective and it's not the whole story, and then it becomes like this whole investigation of what really happened, and we gotta make sure that my head of school knows. And so those are the instances where I get a lot of anxiety, because I'm like, oh no, what happened? And I want to make sure that everyone has a clear story, and it just becomes this whole process. And then I document everything, so if any incident happens, I gotta fill out an incident report and all of that. So that gives me some anxiety as a teacher, but for the most part it's not too bad. So here's my very raw explanation of why being a teacher is so difficult. But the bonus thing that is one of the hardest things about being a teacher is when your class leaves, and pretty much you will not have the same class again. Because even if you move up with them, let's say you're teaching 5th grade and now you're teaching 6th grade, and you have the same class, the curriculum is different, and maybe some friendships have changed, and so you will never have the same exact class again. And then some students move and you don't know when you'll see them again, and that's really difficult too, to have to say goodbye every year. Okay, so that was my real talk with you guys about why being a teacher is difficult. But please make sure you check out the video about why being a teacher is the best job ever, because I want you to balance out the negative with the positive too. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.